All right, so we're going to kick things off on Metropolis once again. HuK has finally relocated himself to a new, fresh computer. And we finally begin. Here in the bottom center of the map on Metropolis, it is EGRC HuK.
All right, and on the other side, directly across from him in the top right position, we have LG. I am YoDa.
And oh, okay.
Okay.
Man, YoDa's so patient too. Like, you know,
he is YoDa.
He's just sitting. That's true. He could sit and wait hundreds of years if need be.
He is YoDa.
Oh, fix your hotkeys, you must.
Oh wow. Well,
So, you know, as I think HuK is really important. HuK plays like a Nexus on a 0 hotkey still, and it's really interesting.
Well, what the hotkeys are is actually changing. It's probably a lot to do with what's it called, camera positioning hotkeys.
Oh
we'll have
yeah.
to change those as
F2
well as
to
you
F4.
can change building hotkeys. So say he wants to build a gateway or build warp gate. A lot of times players will adjust that to an easier to click key. For Zerg, I know for pneumatic carapace, which is generally I think O or something like that, maybe P. I have it at W. So a lot of times I'm sure you fix the ones that are really, really far away from your left hand.
Well, I mean that means you disbind the or unbind the warp gate key, right? But you don't really use that anyways. I think the coolest hotkey change that I do is a trick that Greetorp taught me, which is to use, instead of backspace as your home key, you use spacebar. That's really nice. I like that as well.
That is cool. All right, so we're back live again with the game. You can tell it's live because there's been a whole bunch of interruptions and delays.
All right, and you actually saw the pause. Normally it's a replay. You see everything thrown at once. All right. 3, 2, 1, PP.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Well, you know what, man? You know, I think another cool hotkey that one time I saw Artosis talk about is that you don't really use 0 and 9 that often. I actually rebinded 9-0 to Q and Z, and then I make Zerglings out of E.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that way, like, if I ever have any extra hotkeys, like I put like Evo Chambers on Q or something, or I put like a very specific unit like.
I tried at one point to put O onto this little squiggly key. I don't know what that's called.
Tilde?
Tilde key, but for the reason I really don't like it.
The tilde key is patrol for me. That way I don't have to worry about pressing P for patrol.
Makes sense. And I wonder what the problem is here. Do we actually know the issue? Should really find out why this second pause is here, because, you know, we want to know.
It's kind of a rhetorical question. If everything okay. So I guess you know, the problem here is that, you know, this is the losers bracket, and for players like HuK, they really want everything perfect.
If you fly all the way out here and you've practiced really, really hard, and you want to show good games, right? You're not going to play on a PC that's not going to let you show good games.
That's right.
It's going to demotivate you, because if you lose, you can very easily just blame that. But your fans will say, well, why did you play on it in the first place? Why did you show us bad games? And it's kind of a catch-22, because, well, the tournament wants you to, but you really don't want to as a player.
Yeah, for scheduling purposes, they want to make sure to get the game going as fast as possible, but for you, you want to perform the best you can, and it's a kind of a paradox in that regard, as the tournament wants the player to play the best he can too.
You bet.
Well, here we go. Resume, and it's been a minute in. We got 3 pauses, so
HuK might be out of pauses already. It's like a timeout in a football game.
He uses all of this in the first quarter. Man, HuK should not be a coach at the NFL if he ever retires from StarCraft 2.
It's like a challenge flag. You just
It's like, I don't think that's a good idea, HuK. It's like, trust me, I need this one. The FPS and on the screen is not good enough.
Alright, well, it looks like they're going into pretty standard builds. HuK building a gateway instead of a Nexus first or anything silly like that, and YoDa just going for a barracks before CC. Both players right here will be taking 1 gas in general. A lot of times nowadays, Terran have started doing this build because they just have a SCV waiting at the ramp and wall off, even though they don't finish the supply depot very early.
Yep. You don't necessarily have to. If you go for economic-centered build, you'll be okay. Now, on a Metropolis, You know, it is safe to generally go for very, very heavy macro play, like Nexus first, Command Center first. You generally can get away with it, but at the same time, you know, scaling that back is not necessarily the worst thing in the world. In fact, YoDa is going to completely go the opposite direction and go for an early gas shot.
Yep, you bet.
Yep, and from that gas, he has a lot of options. He can go into factory tech. He can just simply get a Reaper out and Reaper expand too.
All right, well, I think what Terran's going to do from here is probably something involving a factory. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. Maybe Hellions as well, which is something we saw Tasia do last night quite a bit of to try and poke around. Or it might have actually been C.
C did that a lot too.
All right, so there's the factory starting up. We don't really know what it's going to tell, but from the position of it's at, a lot of times what players will do is put a tech lab on that factory, make a starport right next to it, and they can go into Banshees very quick because, I mean, look how close that is to your opponent's base. Right away.
And it's also a second. It's also a second gas, so that's pretty much indicative of going into Banshee play for YoDa. Now, how will HuK choose to respond to this? Because, oh my goodness! Oh no, he's managed to miss that SCV, and the SCV will scout this 4-gate. Now, how will HuK respond from here? Because we have seen Protosses expand after that 4-gate. Players like Mana sometimes even still puts on pressure despite the Nexus being there. So,
all right. Well, from here, I think HuK has to cancel his gates, and he's going to throw in a Nexus. I don't really think there's anything else he can do here. Just going to kill that SCV, cancel the gateways, and throw in the Nexus, and just kind of hope that the Protoss kind of, or the Terran kind of falls for it.
At the same time, though, he's making himself very vulnerable to any kind of starport play. It's still a little bit of a while before Banshees can come out, but HuK needs some form of detection, especially if YoDa's going to go for Cloak. He's adding on more gateways, though, instead.
Well, the thing here is because he went for that 4-gate, and the reason why this isn't normal play is because if you look at the amount of gas that HuK has, he's only getting a Sentry and Warp Gate, and he doesn't really even have enough gas yet for a robotics facility, which is what he's really going to need to be able to deal with Cloak if it's on the way.
Well, we're about to find out momentarily, Sheth. If that's the case, how will HuK choose to respond? He does know that by now there should be some kind of expansion. Looks like their Cloak will be starting. But, you know, it's 5:45. You should see a command center of some sort, even at least a bunker. So,
well, the thing is, he really wouldn't see it yet because he would really just be hiding it. He thinks that there's a 4-gate coming along, and to be honest, YoDa here is really biting on that 4-gate. He thinks that it's coming. He built 2 bunkers. He's having 5 SCVs off the line that are kind of dancing at the front. That's not what he wants to be doing, for sure.
No, that's a great point, Sheth. And, well, I guess HuK has that mind game in his advantage. YoDa still pulling those SVs, like you said, and is going to lose some mind time, but he was able to harass with the Banshee. By now, I think YoDa should be a little bit suspicious. Yeah, he's actually stopped production and starting to add on reactors. Like, well, he's not actually pushing. Is he going to ever push?
Yep, and HuK did get the robotics facility right away, only made that 1 Sentry, which is really good. And from this point on, he has to know that, or well, like you said, this is even, like, at 5 minutes it's kind of weird, 6 minutes it's kind of weird, this is 7 minutes and still no expansion. You have to kind of think, okay, it's probably a 1-1-1, it's probably some build similar to that on the way.
Well, interestingly enough, we do see that HuK finally has, well, not 1 observer, but 2, and that's exactly how you want to fight the Banshees for this very reason. You want to scout his base, but by the time you scout, you're like, oh man, he actually has Banshees out. HuK also has 2 Stalkers, which is the magic number to deal with Banshees.
The Observer missed that Banshee. The Banshee's going to come in. I wonder where that other Observer is even rallied.
Right over here.
Right away, he gets to see that. Now it's just going to be how many probes can that Banshee get before it dies, and if it dies.
Well, the Observer will be able to finish it. The Sentries will not finish the job, but the Stalkers will be able to clean it up. Meanwhile, HuK actually brought another Observer back. How much did he see here? Oh, he saw the factory and the starport, so he knows what YoDa is planning to do, especially since the second barracks has finished. So we have a good old 2-1-1 one-base push here from Terran, and HuK, well, he has all the information he needs. He just needs the right composition and the position to do it.
Yep. HuK now just has to kind of hold off. He's making Immortals, he's making Zealots. At this point, he's bringing that Observer right back in. He should kind of know something fishy is going on. I mean, he has to, right?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, come on. He's got the Observer. He sees no expansion. He knows. I mean, he's a couple. Well, I mean, YoDa's a couple SCV short of going completely all in with this build.
So that is the key right there. The fact that YoDa actually isn't bringing all of his SCVs with this, it kind of makes it a much less powerful all in. And on the flip side, it doesn't make it a full all in, I guess is a good way to put it. He also seems to, maybe not to have forgotten Siege, but he's getting it very late. I bet you he will just pull a bunch of SCVs really, really close for now.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Chet. Usually when you have siege mode, you can have it by the time the second tank gets out onto the field, but he has it pretty delayed in that respect. But he does have a continual Banshee production, and that's going to be a little bit tough for HuK to deal with, because you can see he's focusing on Zealot, Sentry, Immortal. That way he can deal with the Marine tank, but he does need to keep his stock count alive, as he's currently waiting for any Banshees to harass him.
Yep, the SUV train is coming along. HuK didn't quite see it because the Observer died, so he has to kind of be wondering, was there an expansion? Did he actually knock all the way here? And I like it. YoDa's keeping him in the base with those 2 Banshees. Now the fight is going to come along. He sees it with that one little probe, that poor little sacrificial probe. Here's the fight, guys.
Well, he's trying to get ahead of them before the siege tanks can get into position. The Banshees do cloak, but there are 3 tanks targeting down the tank, or 3 Immortals rather, targeting down the tanks extremely quickly, and the Zealots are able to deal. The Guardian Shield working wonders to protect the Zealots. HuK able to crush this push easily. GG. Game number 1 goes to Evil Genius's HuK. Well done.
Nice.
That's an easy build to get crushed under because of the amount of pressure. And if you let them get positioned, that's it. The Marines do way too much damage. Tanks zone everything out.
It was an awesome mind game. If you looked at it, YoDa freaked out. Okay, there's 4 gates. What do I do? What do I do? Bunker, straight into Banshee. But in the end, HuK canceled them, made the Nexus, played really smart from there, and it worked out really well for him.
Yep, solid decision making. I couldn't really say like, well, why would you do that? There's a lot of times Protoss players kind of get caught in that mindset, like, oh, why would you moving out that close, or why would you give up that much space? But I feel like HuK moved out well timed. He also had a contingency plan too. If he was able to kind of have a stalemate, he had a probe that was going to be able to warp in, pressure YoDa, make him force some bad decisions, and from there maybe even one if the game continued on for a few more minutes. Well done by HuK.
Indeed. Now we're going to go ahead and figure out the map really shortly. I think